Hi, my name is Cole, and this is going to be my social issue project presentation on cyberbullying. So, getting started into the history of the problem of cyberbullying, it originally sprouted from just basic bullying itself, and it entered the cyberverse, per se, in the 1990s when people started using computers more. But it really evolved in the mid 2000s when smartphones became the newest must have piece of technology, and everyone had them, and everyone still has them, obviously. And it really became more of a need than a want in the mid 2000s. Cyberbullying itself, however, hit the mainstream media after a lot of online harassment resulted in multiple teen suicides. And this is going to be really the main topic of this presentation is the self-harm that results from cyberbullying, because it's a big problem today, and it's something that we haven't really gotten a control of as a society. And then just some information from the CDC here showing that 14.9% of adolescents have been cyberbullied, and 13.6% of these adolescents have made a serious suicide attempt, which is obviously not good. And then in terms of the duration of cyberbullying itself, it still continues today, and it's really easier to do today with the increased anonymity of social media apps. And as I kind of alluded to, the increased popularity and access to smartphones has really led to this cyberbullying, but as well as the increased popularity of social media itself. The use of Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, other social media apps has made it a lot easier for cyberbullies and bullies themselves to bully people whenever, wherever they want. And with the use of social media itself, it's easy to create a profile that's under a different name, and maintain that sense of anonymity so that way the bully themselves doesn't get in trouble, but they can still implement their tactics on their victims. Looking at the demographics here, it can really affect anybody. If you really want to get into specifics, elderly people can be cyberbullied by spam callers, but for this study specifically, we're focusing on more of the adolescent to younger adult population. This infographic here does a really good job at breaking down just the types of cyberbullying in terms of ages, races, genders, that sort of thing. But in particular, older teen girls are more likely than younger girls or boys of any age to have faced false rumor spreading, constant monitoring online, as well as just cyberbullying overall. The LGBTQ plus community also experiences a plethora of cyberbullying. In terms of socioeconomic status, it has been reported that teens who are from households making less than $30,000 annually are twice as likely as teens living in households making $75,000 a year or more to say that they have been physically threatened online. And then in terms of just a race status here, black teens are about twice as likely as Hispanic or white teens to say that they think their race or ethnicity made them a target of online abuse. So when it comes to laws and policies, like I said, there's really not a lot governing the issue, but there was a pretty substantial act put into place back in 2012 called the Tyler Clementi Higher Education Anti-Harassment Act. This sprouted from a case in 2010 where a Rutgers University student named Tyler Clementi jumped off the George Washington Bridge after his roommate live-streamed a video of Clementi kissing another man on Twitter. I don't know how to say that first name, so I'm going to say his last name. Ravi was the student that recorded Tyler, and as a result of this, he was convicted of invasion of privacy and bias crimes for videotaping and was sentenced to 30 days in prison, 3 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and $11,000 in fines. Me personally, I don't really feel like that's a lot. especially for a crime that ultimately led to the loss of someone's life. But this is kind of where I'm emphasizing that there's not a lot being done to govern cyberbullying itself. The Tyler Clementi Higher Education Anti-Harassment Act itself has not been signed into Congress yet, but the proposal requires policies that prohibit harassment of enrolled students by other students, faculty, and staff based on actual or perceived race, color, national origin, or sex, including sexual orientation and gender identity, disability, or religion, and would require colleges to distribute their anti-harassment policy to all students and employees, including prospective students and employees upon request. This bill would also create a competitive grant program at the Department of Education through which institutions can apply for funding to initiate, expand, or improve programs that prevent the harassment of students. It would also provide grants to provide counseling to victims or perpetrators, or to educate and train students, faculty, and staff about ways to prevent or address harassment, which would be a huge step in combating cyberbullying itself. What they have done across the U.S., though, all states except Montana have rules in place requiring schools to develop anti-bullying policies. In many jurisdictions, these schools also punish off-campus bullying. Cyberbullying is typically covered under these school policies. Just two examples here. The Texas Penal Code, Section 42.07, just includes that cyberbullying in its harassment law makes it illegal to send repeated electronic communications in a manner reasonably likely to harass, annoy, alarm, abuse, torment, embarrass, or offend another, or to publish on social media or any internet website repeated electronic communications in a manner reasonably likely to cause emotional distress, abuse, or torment to another person. This would be great to apply to the Clementi case, but I have not found any sections in the state of, I believe it's Maryland, that Rutgers University is in, that would dedicate a punishment to that behavior. Another California code, Penal Code Section 653.2, makes it a misdemeanor to use electronic communication devices to distribute any personal information, including a photo, about someone that causes that person to experience a reasonable fear for their own safety or for the safety of loved ones, or in electronic messages, harassing a person that would incite them to distribute someone else's personal information. So different states are trying to govern sanctions or implement policies on social media behaviors and cyberbullying behaviors. But then again, it really does just relate back to the anonymity of cyberbullying that makes it so hard to punish its perpetrators. So looking at health disparities relevant to cyberbullying itself, the main health disparity is the impact of cyberbullying on adolescent populations. As I kind of noted back in the beginning of this presentation, the amount of self-harm among middle school, high school students has really increased due to cyberbullying. This infographic here also shows the difference even between 3 years of how much self-harm has been increased due to these behaviors. And notably, 93% of cyber victims reported negative effects, with the majority of victims reporting feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and powerlessness from cyberbullying techniques, which obviously would lead to self-harm behaviors. So what can we do to address this issue? I would like to think with the advancements of AI that we could invent some app to regulate social media conversations. What this app would do is it would use AI to pick up on keywords to report users who are partaking in cyberbullying behaviors. This would be, picking up on keywords such as hateful messages, inappropriate conversations, threats to people, that sort of thing, to hopefully decrease the continuation of cyberbullying that is continuing due to the lack of supervision on social media conversations. In the end, the effectiveness of this approach would be displayed in decreased reports of cyberbullying amongst these adolescent populations. Hopefully, if AI can pick up on these keywords and these not so nice messages, it can decrease the duration of cyberbullying that happens with these victims and puts an end to the cyberbullying that they're experiencing, and hopefully deters them away from that self-harm due to the cessation of cyberbullying. So with collaborating with AI, we would use this to collaborate with schools and communities. We could do this obviously through the school itself. There's community associations that hold town hall meetings, things like that, to where we could advertise to parents the importance of this app and how it can help their child, and also how it can reduce the violence that happens to their children as well. With monitoring social media conversations, however, does bring up the privacy invasion with AI. So we would also have to communicate with them the risks of privacy invasion, because there's a lot of people that are skeptical of whether AI can report our information to government officials, that sort of thing. So that would be definitely a risk that comes with collaborating with AI, but ultimately providing this transparency of, hey, excuse me, of, hey, AI is going to moderate these conversations. There may be leaks. Not every system is perfect, but hopefully in the end, we can still deter violence and self-harm towards your child. And as I kind of hinted on, the proposed outcome with this AI app would be just to positively improve health outcomes amongst adolescent social media users. By deterring cyberbullying, it would decrease self-harm, and it would allow for safer usage of social media so people can connect with more positive people, really build up their own personality, and just maintain better friendships as they grow up in such a pivotal time during their time of adolescence. It's really important that they have nurturing and healthy relationships with people to build themselves into a more capable adult. So, how these partnerships would help. Partnering with local communities and families of adolescents will provide for more advertisement of these anti-cyberbullying approaches. By partnering with schools, we can have teachers explain to their students the benefits of using this app, especially for kids that are already being cyberbullied, giving this information to counselors. For kids who reach out to counselors for help, they can also communicate with that student of, hey, here's something you should try. This could be an invasion on your privacy. However, it may help stop the amount of cyberbullying you're experiencing. And overall, just communicating with these families, communities, and schools and churches and things like that will ultimately help advertise and implement anti-cyberbullying resources. So just research to further explain the effects of cyberbullying itself. The Oxford Academic Journal of Cybersecurity analyzed the impact of cyberbullying on individuals affected by it, as well as what measures can be taken to mitigate its effects. This was a research study done in 2024, and the The authors found that internet exposure and increased risk of self-harm, suicidal ideation, depression, and violent methods of self-harm strongly correlate. The authors also highlighted the role of social media perceptions in the development of cyberbullying perpetration, thus suggesting that certain social media platforms offer more anonymity and can amplify the influence of cyberbullying. They also acknowledge that while cyberbullying victimization alone may not be the sole factor contributing to suicide cases, all of the mentioned suicides had one common element, that being that social media platforms were the primary method for cyberbullying perpetration. They also highlighted that pediatrics should play a crucial role in caring for and supporting the social developmental well-being of cyberbullying victims, particularly amongst young children, while others also argued for specific laws against cyberbullying. Being able to advertise the effects of cyberbullying to pediatric doctors and nurses, I think they have a better connection with their patients versus just someone else advertising their cause against cyberbullying, and they can hopefully educate their adolescent patient on the signs of cyberbullying, who to report to, who to call, who to talk to if they're feeling down and out about the treatment they are receiving from their friends. This research project overall was considered a strong systematic review as it systematically collected and analyzed hundreds of studies, used structured methods to reduce bias and selection, and ultimately synthesized findings across a large body of research to come to its conclusions. This is just my reference page. And one final note, just to say that ultimately, the best thing that can be done to stop cyberbullying is to advocate for their victims, whether that's as a nurse, being educated about the signs of depression and self-harm within children, and learning how to talk to children about these negative experiences that they're having, as well as being educated on the effects of cyberbullying and advocating for changes in law. Having that education will ultimately lead to more positive patient outcomes and a safer internet world for our adolescents to grow up in. Thank you for listening to this presentation.